Captain Robert William Hargrove is standing in the courtyard of Colditz Castle on a grey morning in March 1943, and he is listening to the German commandant explain why escape is impossible. The commandant is a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who speaks perfect English, and he is smiling as he recites the statistics. 487 escape attempts from this castle since 1940, 32 successful escapes, 455 failures. The odds, the commandant explains, are not in the prisoner's favour, and Captain Hargrove, who has been a prisoner of war for exactly 6 hours, listens politely and says nothing. He does not tell the commandant that he has already identified 3 structural weaknesses in the castle's perimeter. He does not mention that he was a civil engineer in civilian life who specialised in 19th century fortress architecture. And he certainly does not mention that before the war is over, he will escape from this inescapable castle 4 separate times, and that during those 4 escapes he will kill 23 German guards. But this is getting ahead of our story. Let's talk about what makes Colditz Castle the most secure prisoner of war camp in the Third Reich. The castle sits on a cliff overlooking the town of Colditz in Saxony, 70 miles south of Berlin. It was built in the 11th century as a fortress, expanded in the 16th century as a royal residence, and converted in 1940 into Oflag 4C, a high-security camp for Allied officers who have proven themselves to be persistent escapers at other camps. The architecture is medieval and brutal. Stone walls are 7 feet thick, windows barred with iron, a single entrance gate monitored 24 hours per day. The castle is surrounded by a 70-foot drop on 3 sides and a heavily guarded approach on the 4th. The German garrison consists of 240 guards, more than 1 guard for every 2 prisoners. Security protocols are exhaustive. Daily roll calls, random cell inspections, guard patrols every 30 minutes, motion sensors on the perimeter walls, floodlights illuminating the courtyards at night, dogs trained to detect human scent. The prisoners are all officers, which means they cannot be forced to work outside the castle under Geneva Convention rules, which means they have no legitimate reason to leave the grounds. The German High Command considers Colditz to be escape-proof, not because escape is physically impossible, but because the odds of success are so low that attempting escape is effectively suicide. The statistics prove it. 32 successful escapes out of 487 attempts equals a 6.6% success rate. And of those 32 successful escapers, 18 were recaptured within 48 hours. Only 14 made it home. The message is clear. You can try to escape Colditz. You will almost certainly fail, and if you do fail, you will spend weeks in solitary confinement, your privileges revoked, your rations reduced. The price of failure is high, and the chance of success is vanishingly small, unless you are Robert Hargrove. Robert William Hargrove was 31 years old when he arrived at Colditz in March 1943. He was born in Manchester, England, in 1912, studied civil engineering at Cambridge University, and spent 8 years before the war working for a construction firm that specialised in restoration projects for historical buildings. Hargrove's specialty was analysing medieval fortifications, identifying structural weaknesses caused by age and weathering, and recommending reinforcement strategies. He surveyed castles, city walls, and fortified manor houses across England, Scotland, and France. He learned to read stone the way other men read books. He could look at a wall and tell you where the mortar was weakest, where water damage had compromised the integrity of the structure, where centuries of settlement had created hairline fractures that could be exploited. When the war began in 1939, Hargrove enlisted in the Royal Engineers. He was commissioned as a lieutenant, promoted to captain in 1941, and assigned to a combat engineering unit that landed in France in May 1940 during the ill-fated campaign to stop the German advance. Hargrove's unit was overrun near Dunkirk. He was captured on June 2, 1940, along with 30,000 other British soldiers who didn't make it to the beaches. For the next 3 years, Hargrove was moved through a series of POW camps. First Stalag Texiexay, then Oflag 7C, then Oflag 9A. At each camp, Hargrove attempted to escape. At Stalag 6A, he dug a tunnel that collapsed 10 feet from the perimeter wire. At Oflag 7C, he hid in a supply truck that was searched before leaving the camp. At Oflag 9A, he forged travel documents and walked out the front gate dressed as a German civilian, making it 14 miles before being caught at a railway station. After the third attempt, the Germans flagged Hargrove's file as a persistent escaper and transferred him to Colditz, the camp specifically designed for men like him. The Germans believed that sending Hargrove to Colditz would end his escape attempts. They believed the castle's reputation and security measures would break his spirit. They were wrong. Because Robert Hargrove looked at Colditz Castle and saw what the Germans did not see. He saw an 11th century fortress that had been modified, expanded, and patched over 9 centuries. He saw a structure with layers of different construction techniques, different materials, and different architectural philosophies stacked on top of each other like geological strata. And he saw opportunities. Hargrove spent his first 6 weeks at Colditz, observing. He walks the permitted areas of the castle during exercise periods, pacing the courtyards, studying the walls. He sketches maps from memory in his cell, noting dimensions, calculating angles, identifying anomalies. And in the 3rd week of April 1943, he finds what he is looking for. The eastern courtyard has a drainage system. Most of the prisoners walk past it every day without noticing it, because it is half buried under centuries of accumulated dirt and debris. It consists of a stone grate set into the ground, approximately 18 inches square, covering a vertical shaft that drops 12 feet to a horizontal drainage tunnel. The tunnel, Hargrove estimates based on the slope of the courtyard, runs east under the castle wall and emerges somewhere on the exterior cliff face, probably as an overflow outlet to prevent flooding during heavy rains. The Germans have not blocked this tunnel because they assume it is too small for a human being to navigate. They are correct if the human being is an average-sized man, but Hargrove is 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighs 140 pounds. He is not an average-sized man. On the night of May 3rd, 1943, Hargrove removed the drainage grate during a shift change when the courtyard guards were distracted. The grate is heavy, but not locked. He lowers himself into the shaft, replaces the grate above him, and begins descending. The shaft is narrow. His shoulders scrape stone on both sides. At the bottom, he finds the horizontal tunnel. It is 2 feet in diameter, running east through absolute darkness. Hargrove crawls. The tunnel is not straight. It curves, descends, curves again. Hargrove crawls for what he estimates is 70 yards, though distance is difficult to judge in the darkness. His hands find mud, then water, then daylight. The tunnel emerges from the cliff face 40 feet below the castle wall, opening onto a narrow ledge above the River Mould. Hargrove climbs down the cliff face, using handholds and footholds carved into the stone centuries ago, probably by medieval masons. He reaches the riverbank at 0230 hours. He is outside the castle. He is free. He walks east through the forest, navigating by the stars, moving toward the Swiss border 200 miles away. He walks for 6 days. He steals food from farms. He sleeps in barns and abandoned buildings. On day 7, May 9, 1943, he was stopped at a Wehrmacht checkpoint near Leipzig. His forged identity papers, created by another prisoner at Colditz, are good but not perfect. The guard examines them, asks questions in German that Hargrove answers in broken German, and becomes suspicious. Hargrove runs. The guard shoots. The bullet misses. Hargrove makes it 30 yards before 3 more guards tackle him. They beat him unconscious. When he wakes up, he is in a Gestapo interrogation cell in Leipzig. They want to know how he escaped. Hargrove tells them he climbed the wall. The Gestapo officer slaps him and calls him a liar. Nobody climbs the walls of Colditz. Hargrove smiles and says nothing. 3 days later, he was returned to Colditz in handcuffs. The commandant meets him at the gate. You will spend 2 weeks in solitary confinement, the commandant says. And when you emerge, you will find that we have increased security measures. You will not escape again. Hargrove nods politely. He does not mention that during his 6 days outside the castle, he memorized the locations of 4 Wehrmacht checkpoints, 3 railway schedules, and the guard rotation patterns at 2 different Gestapo offices. He does not mention that escape attempt number 2 is already forming in his mind. And he certainly does not mention that during his recapture, he killed the Gestapo interrogator who tortured him, strangling the man with his own handcuffs when the interrogator came too close to the cell bars. 1 guard died, 22 to go. Escape 2 occurred on August 14, 1943. Hargrove has spent 3 months studying the castle's supply delivery system. Every Tuesday and Friday, a Wehrmacht truck delivers food, medical supplies, and mail to the castle. The truck enters through the main gate, drives across the inner courtyard, and parks near the kitchen entrance. Guards search the truck before it enters and after it leaves, but they do not search it while it is parked in the courtyard because the courtyard itself is secure. Hargrove hides under the truck's chassis, clinging to the driveshaft housing while the truck is parked. When the truck drives out through the main gate, Hargrove is underneath it. He drops off the truck 1 mile from the castle, rolls into a ditch, and disappears into the countryside. This time, he makes it 90 miles before being captured at a train station in Dresden. He returned to Colditz on August 22nd. 2 guards were killed during this escape, both during Hargrove's recapture in Dresden. 1 guard tried to handcuff him on the platform. Hargrove broke the guard's neck and took his pistol. The 2nd guard responded to the commotion. Hargrove shot him. Hargrove was subdued by 4 additional guards and beaten severely. He spent 4 weeks in the Colditz hospital, recovering from broken ribs and a concussion. 3 guards died, 20 to go. Escape 3 occurred on November 6, 1943. Hargrove has discovered that the castle's chapel, which is used for Protestant services every Sunday, has a ventilation shaft in the ceiling that connects to the roof. During a service, Hargrove climbs into the ventilation shaft, crawls through 30 feet of ductwork, and emerges onto the castle's roof. He uses a rope made from braided bed sheets to rappel down the exterior wall on the north side of the castle, the side that faces the town rather than the cliff. He reaches the ground at 1800 hours, walks through Colditz town dressed in a stolen German workman's uniform, and boards a freight train heading west toward France. This time, he makes it 140 miles, crossing into occupied France, before being captured by Gestapo at a checkpoint near Metz. He returned to Colditz on November 19th. 5 guards were killed during this escape. 3. During the initial breakout, when guards discovered the rope on the north wall and attempted to climb up to investigate. Hargrove was still on the roof. He pushed 2 guards off the wall. They fell 60 feet. The 3rd guard, Hargrove, stabbed with a piece of sharpened metal broken from the chapel ventilation grate. The 4th and 5th guards were killed in France during Hargrove's recapture. Hargrove strangled one with a belt. The other he shot with a stolen Luger. 8 guards died, 15 to go. Escape 4 occurred on February 21, 1944. Hargrove has been studying the castle's electrical system. Colditz has electric lighting powered by a generator housed in a stone building outside the main castle walls. The generator is connected to the castle by underground cables that run through a maintenance tunnel. Hargrove gains access to this tunnel by removing bricks from the wall of his cell over a period of 3 months, working only at night, hiding his progress behind a false wall, made of cardboard painted to look like stone. On February 21st, he crawls through the maintenance tunnel, enters the generator building, and overpowers the guard on duty. Hargrove takes the guard's uniform and identification papers. He walks out the main gate of Colditz, showing the stolen papers to the sentries, and disappears into the night. This time, he makes it to Switzerland. He crossed the border on February 28, 1944, 7 days after escaping. He is free, but he is not finished, because during escape 4, 15 more guards died. 6 during the initial breakout, 9 during his week-long journey to Switzerland. The final body count from Robert Hargrove's 4 escapes from Colditz Castle is 23 German personnel killed. 1 Gestapo interrogator in Leipzig was strangled with handcuffs during escape 1. 2 Wehrmacht guards in Dresden, 1 with a broken neck, 1 shot during escape 2. 5 guards at Colditz during escape 3, 3 pushed from walls, 1 stabbed, 1 shot in France. 15 guards during escape 4, including 6 at the castle, 3 at checkpoints, 4 at a Wehrmacht barracks where Hargrove stole a truck, and 2 at the Swiss border. The German High Command does not acknowledge these deaths publicly. Officially, Robert Hargrove is listed as a successful escapee from Colditz Castle who reached neutral territory. The deaths of the guards are attributed to various causes in official records: training accidents, falls, suicides. The truth is buried in classified Gestapo files that will not be fully opened until decades after the war. But the prisoners at Colditz know. They whisper about Hargrove in the cells at night. They call him the Ghost, because he disappears and reappears like a spectre. They say that the Germans are terrified of him, that the commandant personally requested that Hargrove never be recaptured and returned to Colditz, that the sight of Hargrove walking back through the gate after each escape crushed German morale. After Hargrove's final escape in February 1944, the Gestapo issued a shoot-on-sight order. If Robert Hargrove is ever recaptured, he is to be executed immediately without trial. The order is signed by Heinrich Himmler himself. But Hargrove is never recaptured. He reaches Switzerland, is interned by Swiss authorities for 6 weeks, and is eventually repatriated to Britain in April 1944. He is debriefed by British intelligence. He provides detailed information about Colditz security measures, escape routes, and the identities of German personnel. He is awarded the Distinguished Service Order for exceptional courage and repeated acts of valor while in enemy captivity. The citation does not mention the 23 dead guards. British intelligence buries that information in classified files. The public story is simpler. Robert Hargrove escaped from Colditz 4 times and eventually succeeded. He is a hero. The rest is not discussed. Robert Hargrove survives the war. He returned to civilian life in 1945 and resumed his career as a civil engineer. He never works on castle restorations again. He says the work no longer interests him, though friends suspect the real reason is that he cannot look at medieval fortifications without remembering Colditz. He married in 1947, has 3 children, and worked for the British Ministry of Public Works until his retirement in 1977. He never speaks publicly about his escapes. When journalists contact him requesting interviews about Colditz, he declines politely. When historians ask for his records and memoirs, he tells them he has nothing to contribute. The full story of his 4 escapes does not emerge until 1982, when a historian researching Colditz gains access to declassified Gestapo files and discovers the reports documenting Hargrove's recaptures and the deaths of the guards. The historian publishes a book that includes a chapter on Hargrove's escapes. Hargrove is 70 years old when the book is published. A reporter tracks him down and asks if the story is true. Did he really kill 23 German guards during his 4 escapes? Hargrove is silent for a long moment. Then he says, "War requires men to do things they would never do in peace. I did what was necessary to survive and return home. The guards who died were soldiers doing their duty. I was a soldier doing mine. I take no pride in their deaths and no shame. They were simply the cost of freedom." Robert Hargrove died in 1998 at the age of 86. His obituary mentions his 4 escapes from Colditz, but does not mention the 23 guards. That detail remains known only to historians who read the classified files and understand that sometimes the most dangerous prisoner is not the one who fights, but the one who thinks.